All right. I think we're live. It says we're live. And so, welcome to the live. If you're here on the live in the chat, if you're here on the replay, welcome to the replay. My name is Kayla Cox. I am the owner of this here channel, 6 Miles to Supper, which is basically a description of how I lost 80 pounds with intermittent fasting. I tend to eat OMAD even to this day, 1 meal a day, and I walk 6 miles a day. Not every single day. I generally walk about 6 miles a day, about 6 days a week. There are times when I do it 7 days a week. There are other times where I do it a little bit less than that. It just kind of depends on what's going on in my life at the time. So if you've got questions about the weight loss journey, about intermittent fasting, any of that good stuff, you can pop it into the chat. My husband is in here as the moderator, 6 Miles to Supper.
Hello.
Thank you, Jay, for being the moderator. So you can ask the questions in the chat. And also, if you like asking questions anonymously, because I know sometimes people don't like, putting their information out there, on the posts tab for this channel, every week I put a link to the same Google form. You can just bookmark that form if you want to, and you could submit your questions there. If you just, as you're thinking of it, you think, oh yeah, like there's a question I had, you can pop it in there. And every week, right before the live happens, we get the questions from there, and then we put it in our little document so that those get answered. So be sure to get them in before the live begins, or you can put it in the chat while the live's going on. Okay. Excuse me. It is pollen season here in Florida, so whenever the azaleas are blooming, that's when my allergies are at their worst. Okay, Debbie Trump, 1274, says, can a 71-year-old woman do this? I've been trying to lose 20 pounds for 2 years and nothing is working. The doctor said, you're fine. This happens with age. I went from a 35-inch waist to a 43-inch waist, and this is not fun. Okay, so first of all, sorry you're having trouble, because I know it's not fun whenever things aren't going the way you want them to. So first of all, I think it's encouraging to know that your doctor is saying you're fine. So probably your health markers are good, and maybe he or she doesn't see a need for you to lose weight. And there is some research. Now, again, research and studies and stuff, that a lot of times we're looking at correlation, not causation, and studies can be kind of manipulated to show whatever the scientists want you to think about their study. So, I've seen some studies that suggest that as we get older, especially into later, like in your 70s, 80s, a bit of extra weight, even being in the overweight BMI, is perhaps protective, which is kind of interesting. What in the media and everything, it seems like there's this, like real push to like think that any kind of extra weight is a bad thing. And I'm not saying that for younger people it's a good idea to be overweight, but what I'm saying is there are some benefits of having some extra body weight that are helpful. For example, there seems to be, if I'm remembering correctly, a little bit of cancer protection, possibly. Also, if you fall, if you have that extra body fat on you, you're less likely to break a bone. And a lot of times that is what ends up getting people is, they fall and they get seriously injured and they just kind of go downhill. So I'm not trying to discourage you from losing weight, but I'm just saying, in the big picture, you might not need to lose 20 pounds. But I do think it's important that you feel comfortable in your own body. So what can you do about that? So you will lose weight if you are in a caloric deficit. It's science, and it will happen. Your metabolism slows down a little bit as you age. So for every year past the age of 60, I believe it's 60. Jay, if you could look up how much your metabolism slows after the age of 60s, after the age of 60 is on my website. So it's just a very little bit. It's like maybe 1% each year. And so over the course of time, let's say it's 12 years for you, right? So your metabolism has slowed down by, let's say, 12%. Is it a whole full percent? Um, but it's not that much. When you really look at the big picture, even 10% is not a huge amount. And so, for example, like let's say you're normally burning 2,000 calories and it goes down by 10%. Well, then this 200 calories less that you're burning each day, which can add up, but it's not like this huge insurmountable thing. So and this I think is one of the reasons why it can be so it can feel so difficult to lose weight, because you hear the constant drumbeat of the whole metabolism. Like, like you shouldn't even bother trying to lose weight after the age of 30 because your metabolism just plummets. That's kind of the message you get by osmosis through the media, that there's just this, like, it becomes impossible, or at least that was the message I got when I was 30. I remember feeling like it's impossible now. I've waited too long. My metabolism has already, started to plummet, and that's just not what the science is saying these days. So so metabolism does slow down, but not by much. And so part of this is a mindset thing. You can't let yourself think that it's going to be like super difficult. You just need to realize this. I mean, it's maybe going to be slightly more difficult because your metabolism is maybe a little bit slower, but it's not insurmountable. And, are you super motivated? Like motivation, I mean, this is just me talking here, but the older I get, the less I care about what other people think. So, you might really look at, are you really motivated? Like, is it really important to you? Like, is this a priority in your life? Or is it one of those like, it'd be nice? Because if it's one of those like, it'd be nice if it was, if I lost weight, but you're not really motivated, then maybe it's not a great goal. But if it is, then it's the same kind of strategy. If you're not losing weight, it means however much you're eating right now, you are eating just enough for maintenance. So in order to lose more weight, you're going to have to eat less food. Now, you want to make sure that you eat plenty of protein because you are in a higher age group, and that is a thing with old age. Sarcopenia, in other words, losing muscle mass, is a thing, and it's important for you to keep your protein intake higher. That can also help you lose weight, if you are keeping more lean mass, muscle mass, sorry, on your body. You'll burn more calories pound for pound just by existing, and you'll feel better too. Like when you have, when you're stronger, you feel better. So so getting yourself into a deficit and staying there for an extended period of time. If you are already near a normal BMI, which you probably are, since you're saying you want to lose 20 pounds, and usually when people say they want to lose 20 pounds, I have found they're already right at a normal BMI, or pretty close to it. It's going to be super slow. That's the thing. It's going to be so slow you may think, I'm not making any progress. But if you just weigh, I like to weigh daily and keep track of my 7-day average and watch how it trends over time. And if the trend is going down over time, so like if you're near a normal BMI, like a third, I lost about a third of a pound a week on the last leg of my weight loss journey. But maybe a half a pound, although that might be too aggressive, but that's really slow. It feels really slow. So, but just continuing to keep yourself in that deficit as the scale moves down, you want to be feeling good. I would say that's the main thing. Keep yourself feeling good first and foremost. And then, since your doctor is already saying like you don't really need to lose weight, I would just say, okay, we're going to just see, but take it really slowly. Because if you go too aggressively with it, you could end up, just with a lot of negative side effects, just for one thing, just being cranky, but also low energy or even losing muscle mass, which you really don't want to do. Okay. Couldn't find it?
I couldn't find it.
He could not find, even if you search right here and then metabolism.
I found about a lot of blog posts that had metabolism in it.
Okay, it's tagged a lot, yeah.
But
Put old age. Not that you're old.
I'll come back to it.
Debbie Trump. Okay, next question. Karen Blair 1281 says, I'm a diabetic on insulin. Advice on OMAD with insulin. I would highly advise that you ask your doctor, because I don't have diabetes and I'm not on insulin, and I wouldn't even know where to begin. Anytime you're doing something out of the ordinary, you just kind of gotta, I mean, and OMAD is an out of the ordinary kind of thing. It works great for me, but I don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of situations where OMAD's not a great idea, because, maybe you're on a medication, it requires you to take it with food. And if you're taking it multiple times a day, for example, just talk with your doctor. That's what I would advise. Yes. Okay. So metabolism begins to slow down at age 60. This is from a Duke University study. And it's a decrease of 0.7% each year. So it's even a better situation than we were talking about. So from 60 to age 72, 71, that's 11 years times 0.7, that'd be 7.7% or so, that your metabolism has slowed down. So in other words, that's like less than 200 calories less that you would be burning. So that's not very much food, like that's like a Sister Schubert's roll, I think. So that it said the point is you don't have to like try to make up for it in a major, massive kind of way. It just it's maybe a few fewer calories that you're burning. All right. Laura Castelli 4776 says, love your book. Oh, thank you for buying my book. I'm assuming you mean The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting, which is a book that's on Amazon, and it's also available as an audiobook on Audible if you prefer to listen to your books. But thank you for getting my book. I'm glad you found it helpful. I love eating in the morning, but like to eat with my husband at night. I want to skip breakfast and then open at like 11:30 and close at 6 p.m. And I must lose weight for health. Well, I mean, that can totally work for you. So she said, I can't figure out the best time for me. So love eating in the morning. So, okay, so here's what you could do. You have lots of options. That's the great thing about intermittent fasting, but I understand it can also be the kind of intimidating part, because there are so many combinations that you could do, so many variations, that it can kind of feel overwhelming. But one thing you could do is you could like keep your window more like in the middle of the day, your fasting window more like in the middle of the day. You could do that. I mean, it might help you to kind of think of it as 2 meals a day, right? So do your breakfast, do your supper, and then don't eat otherwise. That can totally work. People do it all the time and they have great success. Because it sounds like that would, I mean, that's still like, let's see, 7, 6, let's see, skip, wait. She said she wanted to skip breakfast. Sorry, I thought you love eating in the morning. I see. Sorry, I misread your question. I thought you were saying you really wanted to eat breakfast and then you wanted to eat supper, which could work. But if you prefer to do like 11 to 6, that's still a very small eating window, and that can definitely work. People have success even with longer eating windows. It really comes down to the individual. Some people like a longer eating window because they're more relaxed with their eating then. They find that they can just naturally kind of eat the right amount. Other people do better with shorter windows. I'm one of those other people that I just do better with a shorter eating window because I prefer larger portions, for one thing. And also, if my window is too long, I tend to forget how much I've eaten, you know, for the day. And because I like larger portions, that can just lead to eating too many calories. So the main thing is just to pick your window and then stick with it, basically. So if you're already at a point where, you know, you can fast until 11:30 and then you can stop eating at 6 p.m., that's a great window. And I would say just stick with that. Just make that your plan. Write it down. You know, I'm a big proponent of writing things down. Write down your plan. A lot of people are really resistant to that idea. I used to be. I used to not want to write down really what I was doing. I wanted to kind of remain vague with myself. The thing about writing down your plan, you're showing yourself, this is what I'm going to do. And then you can check with yourself to see, am I doing that thing I said I was going to do? Because it's really easy to not really do any kind of a plan and to be vague with yourself, and then to get frustrated when you are, you know, you're trying to lose weight, but you're not really on a plan. So then you kind of don't even know what's working and what's not. But if you have a plan and you write it down, then you can check yourself, and then you can say, well, here's what I'm doing, and is this working? And if it's not working, then you change the plan a little bit. But if it's like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that plan, then you can say, okay, either I need to commit to this plan and really test it out for a while, or I need to do a different plan because I can't get myself to do this particular plan. Let's see. Okay, so she says, oh, if I eat breakfast and dinner, no lunch from 11 to 6, that would be fasting. Yeah, I know I said I want breakfast, but I want to skip it. It's about what I want versus what I am doing or what I want to do. Yeah, look, here's the thing. I know people get really strict about this, about like, oh, but like what's fasting and what's not. Well, fasting is just going for a particular period of time without food. The fasted state, the fed state, those are all spectrums anyway. A lot of people will like really emphasize this whole autophagy thing. They get very focused on like, well, but you're missing out on all the benefits of fasting if you don't, you know, if you don't do the clean fast for at least X number of hours, then you're going to miss out on all these benefits. I'm not a scientist, okay? I do look at the research from time to time just to see where are we at with the whole fasted versus fed state and all this, and autophagy. The latest research I have seen seems to suggest that autophagy, as far as like this elevated autophagy that everyone's like so you know, focused on, that doesn't even begin for about 72 hours after like an actual strict fast of 72 hours. That's when it really starts to kick in. Meaning all this debate back and forth about, oh, you got to do a clean fast or whatever, it's probably just moot, which I'm a dirty faster. So take that for what you will. But yeah, you can make your rules whatever fits in your life. And the main thing is that you get yourself into a deficit. And, you know, like I said, for some people, having just 2 meals a day, that's like their perfect plan, because it's like, okay, I can eat in the morning because I love my breakfast, and then I eat in the evening with my husband, and that's what's important to me. I don't care about lunch. It's fine with me if I skip it, and then there you go. You can totally get yourself into a deficit that way. The plan, well, let me say, the strategy will either work or it won't work depending on its implementation. In other words, OMAD is not a bulletproof plan, because if you sit there and you eat 3,000 calories at your one meal, you'll gain weight, you know, provided that you're not burning 3,000 calories a day, which you're probably not. Likewise, you can do no intermittent fasting at all and you could still lose weight. I remember like right after I had gotten down to my goal weight, and I was at this what do you call that? Those meetings we used to go to, the Chamber of Commerce meeting. I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I sat with this woman and we struck up a conversation about weight loss. And she had just finished, I think she had lost like 150 pounds, and she ate 6 small meals a day. It couldn't have been more opposite of what I had done, which was, you know, eat once a day, 1 big meal a day. But we both had success, and that was because her plan worked great for her. That's how she it's not that scientifically like she was eating more calories and I was eating, or fewer calories or anything like that. It was just that that's how she could stick to her plan the best. She liked having 6 small meals a day. Trying to have 6 small meals a day, that drives me crazy. It takes far too much effort, and I never really feel satisfied. If I'm just eating little bits throughout the day, I just feel hungry all day. So really, it's just what works for you. Figure out the plan that really fits in your life, that you can stick to, that feels enjoyable. All right. Roblox user 460. Good to see you in here. Says, please tell me how many weeks of overeating, in your opinion, will you see noticeable weight gain, like clothes not fitting properly, especially on the waist? Well, that's going to be a tricky thing, because here's the thing, like, it depends on how tight are your pants right now. Like, if they're really loose, then you could gain, I don't know, 20, 30 pounds maybe before you really start to notice that they're tight. Um, and it also depends on how severe is the overeating. So, so I think a better question, uh, like a better way to approach it is, how much overeating can you do before you'll really start to notice it? And this, I think, is why daily weighing is important. Like, the reason I say daily weighing is important, or being in the weighing habit is important, is because for some of us, the weight can come on quickly and without us even really noticing it. Like, I'm the type of person, first of all, I lose track of time very easily. And so if I get out of the habit of doing a thing daily, then it can be months later before I come back to it. So that's one thing. So that, like that idea of like, well, you just need to be consistent in your weighing. I need to be daily in my weighing, because otherwise there's going to be big gaps there. The daily weighing is helpful, in my opinion, because then you never let it get too far. There have been lots of times in my maintenance journey where the scale just starts to tick up, right? And it's not a huge amount, right? But over time, just seeing that trend start to go up. But now weight also fluctuates. So this is a tricky question, because weight fluctuates. Also, water weight fluctuates, which can make your clothes feel tighter than normal. Like for women, we've all experienced it. Like, you're on your period, and that's when you feel bloated, your pants feel tighter, and it's just water weight. It'll go away, but it feels at the time like, oh, I've gained a lot of weight, but you really haven't. So uh oh, and this person says they took a break from the deficit in your because it's Ramadan, and so it's a fasting month. And so I believe what you mean then is you're trying to not be in such a deficit so that you can do the fast, which I think that's very important. So, yeah, Ramadan is it 40 days? I can't remember if it's also 40 days. So we're in Lent right now, which is 40 days. And so, are you like, here's how I would answer it. If you're mainly concerned about Ramadan, and if it's about 40 days, Jay, are you checking that for me? Fact check. 29 or 30 days. Okay, so really, you can't do a whole lot of damage. I imagine you're paying attention. It sounds to me like you're paying attention. Maybe you're not weighing. And so, as long as you're paying attention and you're not going completely off the rails, which you're likely not, since you're in a month of Ramadan, which I believe, if I'm correct, it's a period of fasting and a lot of prayer. So although that kind of thing can also bring on more temptation. Okay, so so I understand that too, but just continue to pay attention. Do the best you can during this time. This too shall pass kind of thing. Like, it's going to be over before you know it. And if you do find at the end of that time, like, oh, you've gained, a little bit, you know how to get it back off. So don't panic. But that is why I weigh daily, just because then I know. And again, you're going to have the fluctuations, especially if you're eating different kinds of food during this time. You're on maybe a different kind of schedule, because I believe you don't eat until the sun goes down. So maybe you're eating later at night. So you may find, I don't know if you're taking a break from weighing, or maybe you don't weigh. So all those things may add up to maybe a little bit different of a result than what you're used to seeing. But once Ramadan's over, then you can get back to your regular schedule. And I think that's good to do also. Like, sometimes having your schedule get interrupted in a way where maybe it is going to be challenging, and maybe you will gain a little bit, but I think you can then learn from that experience if you have it framed the right way in your mind. Like, so we celebrate Easter, the days after Easter, um, 50 days, right? 50 days after
Till
Easter
Pentecost.
till Pentecost. So from Easter Sunday until Pentecost, there is no fasting in the Orthodox Church. And I try to abide by that. I try to not practice OMAD, and I do prefer OMAD, but I think of it as like it's an interesting kind of challenge for me, and I think it's good to do. So uh, so yeah, so I say just do your best, and sounds to me like you're doing a good job. So all right. Charlie Unicorn 7 says, I want to thank you for your videos. I started just over a month ago at a 16.8, and now I'm mostly at an 18.6, and I feel so much better, and I've already lost 11 pounds. Well, that is fantastic. That is very, very good. So a month ago, 11 pounds. That's a pretty fast rate of loss. So just so you know, it may slow down a bit for you. A lot of times whenever you switch what you're doing, or you start losing weight, sometimes there's initial kind of like drop due to water weight or whatever. And so just keep powering through, basically, is what I mean. Like, just stay consistent. A lot of people, they want to try to keep that higher rate of loss going, and they'll start to do things that are not sustainable. So instead, just keep it sustainable, keep your plan very easy, and be consistent with the plan. And you'll do great. All right. Let's see. Aishwarya, sorry, I butchered your name just now. 2498 says, "Hi, how do you start fasting?" Well, you do it however you can do it. I would say the first little baby step is to look at what you're already doing, and then think about what is reasonable to expect from yourself. So back before I started intermittent fasting, I was just eating all day. I had no rules about food. I was just like, I would just eat first thing in the morning when I got up. I would snack throughout the morning. I'd have lunch. I'd snack kind of throughout the afternoon. We would eat supper. I would snack after supper. And so when I first started hearing about intermittent fasting, I thought, okay, what's a reasonable first rule? And so I decided to cut off my eating at 10 o'clock at night, because I was staying up late at that point and eating, it'd be midnight, I'd still be eating. So I was like, okay, I'll stop eating by 10, and I won't eat before 6. That was my first little baby fasting window. And then I realized that, okay, I can do that. That was not too difficult. So then this is the method I prefer. And this is what I did, and it worked for me. And I see people doing different things, and it can all work, but I'll tell you why I prefer this method. I just would push out my window very gradually, and I would push it out in the way that felt the easiest. So sometimes I found pushing out my window a little bit later into the morning worked better for me. Like, it was just like an easier kind of like hurdle. Like, oh yeah, I could make my breakfast a little bit later. That would work. So I'd be like, okay, I can do 6:15. I can wait till 6:15. I can wait till 6:30. I can wait till 7, right? And then at a certain point, it was kind of like, I don't really want to wait later in the morning, but I do think I could maybe make my cutoff window at night a little bit earlier in the evening, right? So I just kept pushing it out that way. I generally found the eating later in the morning was the easier thing in general. But there were times where it was like, let's, I think probably when I got to about 9 o'clock, then it was like, okay, I don't really want to make it any earlier in the evening than that. Because I mean, my husband and I would like sit there and eat popcorn and watch TV and stuff, and I liked that. Um, so yeah, and eventually, I kept just kind of pushing out my windows, and I got to the point where I was eating one meal a day, and that's what I preferred, right? Uh, but I didn't get there all at once. It took me about a year to get to, I would say, a consistent 16:8. And then it took me, by the time I got down, or like January of 2016, I was at a 16:8, 18:6, and it took me probably another 3 or 4 months. It was like right at 3 months to get to OMAD. So again, just very gradually, just slowly stepping it out. And I think that's great. I think that's a great way to do it, because then the fasting always feels easy. What a lot of people want to do, excuse me, is they want to jump to it, and that can work. But there are some people that works for them, and they have great success. But what happens to a lot of people, and I would say this is the vast majority of people, they will go from eating, like I used to eat, which is like all day long, and then one day they just wake up and they say, I'm going to do OMAD today. I'm just going to try to, wait till supper to eat. And they feel miserable, and it feels so difficult because their body is just so used to, like, hey, we eat all day, so what are you doing? And then because it feels so difficult, people will then write it off and say, I can't do that because that's too hard. So if you push it out gradually, though, your body's just constantly adapting. Your body can adapt to a lot of things, I have found. And these days, like, OMAD generally feels very easy. It does feel a bit more difficult during Lent, because I do impose on myself to only really have like coffee with half and half twice a day, and then also we're eating no meat, so that is more of a challenge, because fish and that kind of thing is not as satiating. Um, so so there's more of a challenge these days. Like I do notice, uh, or I have noticed during Lent, it has been more like about what time? I think about around 3 o'clock. A lot of times, I'm asking my husband, like, "Hey, what time do you want to eat this evening?" I mean, the answer is always 6 o'clock. But I think I'm always like kind of wanting him to say, "Hey, we can eat, earlier today." So anyway, so okay, so this person also wanted to know, how do you manage OMAD and hunger? So, well, we were kind of touching on that. So OMAD, I don't manage OMAD. Like, to me, that's like my preferred. I love OMAD because, for one, I don't have to think about food and what meals and how much and all that. I just sit down to one meal. I eat as much as I want. I'm nice and full at the end of it. I get up, and then I don't think about food until the next day, generally speaking. Hunger, you do have to deal with hunger when you're in a deficit, okay? When you're in a deficit, your body, that's just how your body works, is going to tell you, like, hey, by the way, you're not giving me enough food. If you don't give me more food, I've got to tap into these fat stores, and I don't want to do that because I want you to be alive for as long as possible. I mean, this is kind of the battle. I mean, it's not a battle, but it's a conversation with your body. Your body is saying, we've got these fat stores, and that's really good, because historically in the world, a big risk to human life was starvation. So we have this abundance. Like here in America, the big problem is obesity. Even amongst our poor people, it's obesity. We have an abundance of food. Food is, like, especially like highly processed food, is very tasty and easy to overeat on. The data from metabolic chambers is showing that if you give somebody and you just say eat until you're full, if you give them just regular food, just like home cooked meals and just regular food that's not been processed, people will eat the right amount. In other words, they'll eat in a slight deficit or just the right amount to maintain. You give them a plate full of highly processed food, they will eat too many calories. In other words, it's just really tasty and easy to overeat on. So, so, uh, so that's our challenge in the world today. At least here in America, I can speak to that. Is how do you get yourself to eat the right amount of calories? And when you're in trying to be in a deficit, you're gonna definitely feel some hunger. So, um, so how to manage that hunger? First of all, is to not let your deficit be too severe. Um, a rate of weight loss of about a pound a week is very manageable hunger wise. Like you're gonna feel a bit of hunger, but you're not gonna be cranky about it. Hopefully, you're. It won't be distracting. You won't have headaches. You won't um, feel nauseous. If you're feeling those things, you maybe are losing a little bit faster, but you're going to feel so miserable, it's going to be a lot easier to quit. So, so you want that hunger level to be just right, Now, to add a little bit of complexity to this is the fact that sometimes things that are not hunger will manifest as hunger. So, for example, stress, sadness, emotional kind of things can you might feel like, oh, I'm really hungry, I need to eat, but really it's your body's way of just trying to comfort itself. I found this to be particularly true. Like I didn't even realize that I was doing this before I started fasting, but a lot of times when I was eating, when I was obese, I was eating because I was bored or I was sad or I was stressed or I was angry. There were all these different reasons that I was eating, and it had nothing to do with like I'm actually hungry and I need to eat in order to keep my body running. So so to deal with that kind of hunger, and the way you start to kind of discern between real hunger and that fake kind of hunger is the fake kind of hunger will go away if you get busy doing something. I like to, what really helped me in the early days of learning how to fast and be consistent with fasting was to keep a to-do list of all the different things that I wanted to do, but that I felt like I didn't have time to do. Things like reading a book. I set a goal to read 52 books a year. And so whenever I would feel hungry, I'd be like, well, I mean, I'm hungry right now, but I can sit here and read, and I really love to read. So that would distract me from that hunger. And then I would get busy reading, and then I'd look up, a couple hours later and be like, oh, I'm not hungry at all. And so I'd start to learn like, oh, that kind of thing that I thought it was hunger, but it was actually just boredom, or or I'm stressed. Like I would start to kind of retrace my steps. I find myself, standing in front of the pantry looking for a snack, even though it's the middle of my fasting window and I'm not going to eat. I would think, okay, what just happened? Like just, within the past few minutes. Oh, like I'm stressed about money because my husband was a realtor at the time. We just found out that closing was not going to happen. So now I'm stressed and I'm wanting to eat to kind of calm my nerves. And that is a thing. I mean, food does a really good job of calming you down. So if you're a person like me who tends to struggle with worry, it can be a thing. So so you just have to learn different ways to deal with those things. I found journaling was really helpful, talking it out with another person, certainly walking, having my step goal there to then distract me from those things, or to help me think them through. Praying, there's so many different things, different strategies that can help you deal with those things that manifest as hunger. So, all right, Katie Irish 5765 says, what do you think about the protein requirements? 100 to 150 a day. Okay, look, I don't think about them. The only time I think about them is when people ask me questions on these lives about it, or they write into me about it. And okay, I believe science, okay? I'm not a science denier. But by the same token, humans have been alive on this planet for thousands of years, thousands of years. And we've always just kind of eaten, you know, we just ate. Like we didn't have nutrition labels until like the 80s or maybe it's the
It
90s, I
was the
think. It
90s.
was the 90s, yeah. So we didn't even like the general population until the 1990s didn't know how many grams of protein were in this and how, like how many calories were in that. And lifespan, I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Yeah. Lifespan has remained pretty constant over the course of human history. Life expectancy, you hear this brought up, life expectancy, oh, like as if we have just wonderful life expectancy now, and then back in the day people just didn't live to be older than 50. That's inaccurate. There are people who definitely lived into their 80s, 90s. I mean, go read the Bible. Like there are plenty of examples of people who lived into very old age. And I mean, there's a thing in the Psalms that says like we're basically promised, maybe 60, 70 years, right? Am I getting that right? Is it 60 to 70 or 70 to 80? Now I can't remember if it's three score and 10, three score,
Oh, yeah.
three score and 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe four score if you're lucky. Something like that. So the point is, it's not as if like, oh, that was just a rare thing. Even back in the days of the Psalms, people were like, hey, you're probably going to live to be, maybe 80 if you're lucky, let's say. And I mean, I'd say that's pretty accurate to these days. So the thing about life expectancy is when we're talking about that, they are averaging everybody's age. And for a long part of human history, infant mortality was very high for various reasons. And so that weights that average. So in other words, there's so many babies dying that makes the average lower, which is a very sad thing. But I mean, that is the thing. So when we're talking about lifespan has been pretty steady. And so my point is, even back in the day, we had no idea about protein. Oh, you should get this much protein and everything. We're still living and we're fine. And when I look around and people have all this, supposed knowledge and, oh, we know all this about nutrition, and yet we have obesity is just everywhere and people are struggling with their health. So I think it's not a great idea to worry about food. I think it's almost better to think as little as possible about it. That's my very unpopular opinion. But if it's important to you, like, here's the thing: if you find it important, I think it's very important that you do it. That's my answer. People should follow their own, like, I think this is important, and if it's important to you, you should prioritize it. Okay. Kath Jin says, when did you start adding the 6 miles of walking? Did you feel tired with the fasting too? Okay, so I started walking 6 miles a day in late 2015. Previous to that, I got a Fitbit when I was or it was Christmas of 2014. And man, that was a wake-up call, because before that, I thought I was a very active person. Like, I thought, I'm chasing these kids. I had 3 young kids at the time, chasing them around all day. I'm super active. And so if you had, how you go to those calorie calculators and this, like, are you sedentary? Are you active? Are you very active? I would have been like, yeah, I'm very active. That was my own perception of myself. But I put that Fitbit on and I thought, I'm not going to change anything. And I'm just going to see, like, how many steps am I getting? I thought, I'm certainly getting over 10,000 a day without even trying, because that was the big thing back then, was the American Heart Association, I think, was it, that said, 10,000 steps a day for heart health. I thought, I'm already doing that. So, and then that first day, I think it was something like, I don't know, 1,800, 2,000 steps or something. I was shocked. I was like, that can't be right. So I did it for a few days, and it was consistently like just several thousand steps. And it was just a wake-up call. And that was a really good wake-up call to get, because it was like, what else am I missing? Like, what else about myself, like my own perception of myself, am I inaccurate about? And so then I started, that was, I think, the point at which I started to become more self aware. Um, and I think it was because of, maybe because of Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within. I think it was that book where he was talking about like learning how to observe yourself, like actually, not just like what do you think you're doing, but what are you actually doing. Like if a camera was following you around all day, what would it see? So I started thinking about that when it came to my activity levels. I would kind of like picture like a, if the camera is on me right now, what's it going to show? It's like basically a person just sitting around all day. you know and same with eating. I started to think about like, okay, if a camera's on me right now, what's it going to be seeing? And I didn't like thinking about that, because it was like, man, I am eating really fast, first of all, just like barely chewing the food, but also eating a lot, um so okay, so I got that Fitbit, and 2015 I did start going to the gym. And so I kind of had this loose rule for myself. I wanted to get like about 10,000 in, but I was very inconsistent. I was working out really hard though. Like I was doing powerlifting. That year I was just inconsistent in general. Okay, so like sometimes I'd be like doing CrossFit, the workout of the day, and then other times I'd be doing just powerlifting. I really love the powerlifting. I mean, CrossFit was the thing, and I was not like a member of a CrossFit gym. I was just like, I would look at the CrossFit app or the workout of the day on the website or whatever, and I would just try to do it. And that exposed me really to powerlifting, and I love that aspect. I was like, this is awesome. Deadlifts were my favorite. I loved it. And then I was pushing myself too hard, and I did a deadlift with really bad form, and I hurt myself, hurt my back really badly. And so I couldn't work out hard. I couldn't do that intense kind of workout. Couldn't squat, couldn't do deadlifts. It was like, it just hurt. I just hurt. Um, the only thing that I really could do that I was so determined though, I've got to stay active in some form or fashion. Like I've got to do something. And I could walk. I was like, I mean, it wasn't super comfortable, but I was like, I can do this. And actually I felt better if I walked. I noticed that. I was like, because, I guess with a back injury or any kind of muscle injury, keeping yourself somewhat active, doing activity that doesn't actively hurt you, can help you kind of maybe heal a little bit better. So I felt less stiff and stuff when I would go walk. So I thought, okay, walking, I can do that. So so from, I think I hurt my back in July, and then it was like, I would say probably near fall, where I really started to get consistent. I was trying to figure out that point at which, like, what can I really commit to? I didn't want to over commit myself. I was really working hard that year on learning how to keep my promises to myself. Well, I mean, and just in general, but mainly to myself, because so many times I would make promises to myself and break them. Right. So I was like, I've got to stop doing that. I got to stop overcommitting. And so I was trying to be really careful about the step goal, because like, once it's locked in, like I really want to lock in a good one, but I was trying to calibrate that, like what's too much. And look, 6 miles is pushing it. I mean, it's a time commitment. But I kept working with it, and I really liked the 6 miles because I always felt accomplished. Like, man, 6 miles, I was like, that, like, pat myself on the back. I felt good. I felt good both, um, like, I felt good physically, but also like mentally. It was just an accomplishment for the day that I felt like, this is really good for me. Like it was a win-win-win, like it's good for my weight loss journey, great for my fasting also, because so many times the fasting, well, right, like I'd feel hungry, right? I'm hungry because I'm stressed. I'd really like to go eat a PB&J right now, but I'm not going to do that because I'm fasting. What can I do instead? I still have my steps. I haven't finished my step goal yet, so I can go and do that. So it helped me to become more consistent with the fasting. Um, and you asked, did I feel tired? Compared to how I felt when I was obese, like my energy levels were increasing. Okay. But I want to make it clear that when you're in a deficit, that you're gonna feel more tired than you would feel if you were not in a deficit. I mean, it's just part of how your body works. It's when you're fast, especially if you're doing any kind of uh like severe deficit. Like I've done 5-day fast before. I've done two of those, and man, all I want to do is just kind of sleep. Like, I mean, maybe not all day. There is this kind of like, I feel like you kind of get a second wind occasionally, but your body, it does what it does because it's trying to keep you alive. And so like, if you're like, there's no food right now, it's like, let's take a nap, because that won't burn through those fat stores. So I mean, it's that constant conversation that you have with your body. And I've done the 6 miles of walking with the 5-day fast, and it works. Like, you can do it, but does it take more effort? Yeah, like, because you're fasted, like you're in the fasted state, and when you're in like really fasted, you have lower energy, and which makes sense. Like, your body is always just trying to help you out. Sometimes it's just doing the thing. It's like, well, we don't need to do that right now. Like, when I was obese, I just kind of needed to tell my body, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I appreciate you don't want to tap into the stores, but we got to get this weight off. And that is how I talk to my body. So, let's see. Okay, one more thing about the walking and the being tired and all that stuff. A thing that was important that I had to learn was, you a lot of times can accomplish more if you will just let yourself take breaks. And so when I'd be walking around, I was obese, and so I mean, this isn't like an easy task. I would want to sit down, and I would say, okay, you can sit down. Like, sit down, have a rest, and then when you're ready to get some more steps, then get up and get some more. Like, if I'm out walking, I mean, even to this day, if I'm out walking and I am tired, and there's a bench there, I'll sit down and take a rest, and then when I'm ready, I'll get up and do some more steps. Like, there's no shame in it. And actually, the thing that really helped me with this, there was a part of a book, and now I won't remember which book it is. It might be, no, I don't know which book it is, but the point was, they studied this bricklaying no, not bricklaying factory. They studied brick makers. I think it was brick makers. Anyway, the point is, they were doing very hard physical labor, and this guy studied who is more productive, the people who just go at it as hard as they can, they never take a break, or if we take this other group and give them a consistent break, and then they work really hard for a concentrated amount of time, who's more productive? And the group that was more productive was the one that took the breaks. So that was a lesson for me, because I tend to be the type of person who I can tend towards workaholism. Like, I want to just be productive all the time, and I gotta do all the stuff, and I'm just constantly doing stuff, and I'm not taking the rest. But if I just make myself stop and rest, I find that I end up being more productive. So it's one of those like weird. It seems like a paradox, but anyway. All right. Did you find it?
I don't know which book it was.
Well, we don't know. I'm sure if you look through my old videos, you can probably find it somewhere. But okay. Next question. Beatrice says, "Hi, I'm a very social person, and I have many friends. A lot of our get-togethers involve going out to eat, and I often get invited to dinner." Well, that's great. "I follow an OMAD schedule, and I usually eat my one meal at 2 p.m. I work from home doing computer work, and this routine has helped me maintain my weight very easily. The issue is that when I go out to dinner with my friends, I usually don't eat because I've already had my meal. It honestly doesn't bother me at all. I'm not very hungry, but I can tell, yep, it sometimes makes them feel uncomfortable. Another factor is that I don't really like spending a lot of money eating out. I could shift my one meal to dinner occasionally, but I've noticed that if I eat after 7 p.m., I slowly start gaining weight. Maintaining my weight loss takes effort, so I try to stick with what works. Do you have any advice on how to handle this situation? Okay. Yeah, that's the thing about social situations, and I think it's so important to to participate and to not do things that you're going to feel like, oh, I'm missing out, or because that can make things feel more difficult if you feel like you're missing out. So you have to find that balance, and I'm like you, right? I'm a very frugal person, very frugal. We hardly ever eat out. But I'm also like, my plan, the rule that I set for myself has always been, if there's a social situation, I eat. Like it just if it I say, like, if it's a social situation where the main thing is food, but really it's just like any kind of social situation, other people are eating, I'm gonna eat with them. Because I have found, like you have, people are feeling uncomfortable if I'm not eating. I remember we were back when we were realtors. I was like at a business lunch. It was just like a class slash they would bring in food, and the first time or so, I was like, I'm not gonna eat because, like, I don't care. Like, I didn't think people would really notice that I wasn't eating because it's a class going on, and so, like, why would they care? But oh man, did people care? And like, I didn't really care to eat at that point, but I felt like I am making everyone feel so uncomfortable. I would rather eat. Like, I feel too uncomfortable now not eating, so I'll just eat. And I'm glad I did that, because one thing that having that rule for myself did was it kind of forced me to uh just learn how to adapt to occasionally that means I'm going to be having 2 meals a day, and that takes learning how to eat the right amount when you're doing 2 meals a day as opposed to that 1 meal a day. It's like I had to learn how to kind of mentally cut the meal in half. Like, whatever you think you want to eat, for an OMAD, you need to basically eat half of that, and then you'll be eating the right amount of food, which takes more effort than just sitting there and eating my one big OMAD like I prefer. But I'm glad that I learned how to do that. It made me more flexible, which I think made the weight loss more sustainable. Um, so that's one way to approach it would just be, just go and eat, and just look at it as okay, this is like a skill. I'm not going to be great at it first. I'm probably going to eat a little bit too much, but overall I will learn, and that I won't have to uh have this weird situation where I'm feeling like I'm gaining. Because look, one day you may have like some water weight going on there too. Like, if you're going out to eat, the food from a restaurant is far saltier, and probably more calories than you're used to, but mainly the salt. And so I would say that's one thing to just be aware of, that maybe you're seeing, like, oh, if I once I go out to eat, then my weight's higher the next day. It's probably not like permanent weight gain. It's probably just water weight. So that's, hopefully going to put your mind at ease a little bit on that. But the other part, the budget, right? So you're perfectly allowed, to be like, sorry, it's really not in my budget, so I can come, but I'm just not going to eat. I know, though, like, I said that out loud, but I'm like, that's not what I would do. I would be too embarrassed to say it. Be like, yeah, let's go. And then I'd be like worried about money the whole time. So yeah, it's not a great ideal situation. I mean, if it really depends on your friend group. Some people are very open about money, and then other people are not open about money. You could suggest, for example, uh, having like, you know, potluck type thing, and they could come over to your house or you could go over to their house. And because sometimes people are relieved because everybody's like, I'm spending too much money, but I don't want to be the one to say it. And then if you just say, hey, you guys, you know what, like our budget is tight, or my budget's tight right now, can we just like do a potluck? You might find that you have a better time. Oops, sorry about that. That's my little timer. Which means we are out of time, but there is one more question. So anyway, so that's what I would say for that situation. Okay, last question. Cora says, you mentioned that you take 1 day off each week from OMAD. I tried doing that, but I ended up gaining about 6 pounds. I think the reason might be that I was eating 2 full meals instead of adjusting the portion sizes. When you eat 2 meals on that day, are you basically splitting your OMAD into 2 smaller meals? In other words, do you eat a smaller amount at each meal? Yes. To be honest, I don't really like taking a day off from OMAD. Eating 1 meal a day has become very easy for me, and the routine works well. As long as I stick with it, I continue to lose weight slowly. It may be only a couple of pounds a month, but at least I'm still making progress. Do you have any advice? Well, I say do whatever works for you. I mean, I take a day off because that's what worked for me. Like I took it off initially because we were having a pancake breakfast on Saturday or on Sunday mornings, and that was just throwing off my whole plan because it was like I do great. I do OMAD, 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 or you know, well, intermittent fasting technically back then, but it just that day just kept throwing me off, and then that would throw me off permanently. It was like, oh, I just didn't do it right, and that perfectionist tendency would make me quit. So having that day for me, that 1 day where I can just like eat, you know, whenever with my family, it's fine. I enjoyed that. If I were living alone, I might do OMAD 6 days or 7 days a week. You know, maybe I would. Um, but I also really like the having a day off a week. Just from a perspective of, because then it's like I always have like a vacation day, like one vacation day a week. I don't know, like for me that works. It feels like maximum freedom, I guess, is one way to think about it. It's like it just makes the plan feel even easier. You know, I feel like I could do it, you know, OMAD 7 days a week, but having it be even easier is also nice. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. And it also definitely helped me to have that day off, because then like when I go on vacation, things like that, it's not like, oh, I've never done this before. It's like every Sunday is like a vacation day. So it helps me to then get back on plan after I have those interruptions to my schedule, which I think everybody goes through from time to time. So that would be just the other thing I would offer. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you found it useful. Be sure to pick up the Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting on Amazon if you are interested in that. And I will see you guys next week.